Sherry James, welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on today and being with us and sharing your story with the creative community. And I know you're doing a lot with mental health awareness and creating mental wealth. So you want to discuss that. But before we get started, let me give you a brief introduction here for the audience. You are the founder and CXO of Phoenix Speaks Incorporated, established in 2019. That is training and consulting firm focusing on leadership development and mental health advocacy. You're the creator of 2020 Lives Changed Incorporated, a nonprofit organized aiming to transform conversations around mental health and suicide prevention, which has impacted over 1 million people since 2020, which is amazing. You're host of Creating Mental Wealth with Sherry James, short form talk show where you interview professionals on coping strategies for post-pandemic stressors and promoting mental well-being. You're an accomplished project management officer, director, and keynote speaker with over 20 years of experience on the speaker circuit. You educate audiences on next generation leadership, corporate mental health, and suicide prevention. As an advocate for mental wealth and the Heal Out Loud movement, you recognize globally for your authority on mental health topics, appearing on various news channels to discuss mental wellness initiatives, which is amazing work because it's so needed, even more so today since the pandemic in America and around the world as well. So I only have one scripted question, and it's always the first. Um, and it is, where were you born and what was life like as a kid for Sherry?
Oh, yeah. So it gets real deep real fast. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. And the stories that I've heard over my life was that I was born at a funeral. My mother did not know she was expecting.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah. And so I was born prematurely and got to spend the first few months of my life in an incubator. And now I like to tease and say that's why I'm so, well, normally I'm very good with technology, not so much today. But yeah, so I was born there. My dad served in the United States Air Force, and he served during a very tumultuous time. He came home, like a lot of others who came home after Vietnam, very different. So of the 7 years that I do remember with my dad, I just remember having this reverence for him. He was always so just put together and studious. But when I was 7, he died by suicide. And
Oh, wow.
um, my mom really struggled to deal with that. If you can imagine the stigma that exists today with mental health, imagine this 50 some odd years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so she did not seek help. Her life declined for the next 20 years. I watched her um, descend from this. She was a beautiful woman. She was a model. She was a socialite. But I watched her descend through alcoholism, addiction to various drugs, and ultimately her suicide when I was 27. So when people
Wow.
ask me about my childhood, it's like I don't necessarily remember a lot of it because I really didn't even talk about any of that trauma that happened to me until maybe I was 45 or so.
Okay.
And I'm 3 right now. So
Gotcha.
I'm still unpacking the happy memories. There are some there as I continue to heal through my trauma. I remember spending summers with my great grandmother and, traveling. And so I do have some very good memories, but I'm in the process of uncovering them as I heal from the trauma of losing both parents. Um, the time between my father's death and the time before my mother's death, because I'm an only child, and because the drug that she ended up addicted to really changes the psyche of a human being. I experienced a lot of sexual trauma at her at her hand, right?
Got
In exchange for for her habit. And so I always thought, like, I never want to have children. I don't ever want to do this. Like, if this is my idea of what parenting should be, I don't want to do it. Yeah, so I was actually told I would never have children because of some physical things. But I
Gotcha.
actually have two children. I have a daughter who is 30. Wait, she was born in 1989. I stopped trying to do the math. Is that bad? I'm like, she's born in 1989, and my son was born in 2007. So I have two children in two totally different generations. They're
Wow.
two only children. They've never cohabitated. Um, but I did the best that I could with my daughter. I was, a 18 at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. I was just trying to escape the trauma that was my childhood.
Sure. Sure. Did were your grandparents around that time where you?
Very awesome question. And no one's ever asked that. So my grandfather actually lived in Alabama.
Okay.
And I didn't find out until maybe a year ago that from the time that my dad died until the time that my mother died, that my grandfather actively tried to get custody of me and I didn't know that.
Wow.
And so, but he would send for me in the summers, and I would spend the summer with he and all of his siblings and his mother. So my great grandmother, she died at 103. I remember everything about her. I remember every touch, every kiss on the forehead. I remember her teasing me for my accent because I didn't speak the way that folks did in
Right.
Alabama. And I remember getting teased when I got back to Missouri because now I spoke like I came from Alabama. But I remember her fruit trees, and she was a midwife in the city that she lived in. And she had literally, we say that, I guess, in the South, like she literally birthed most of the city that she was in. The people's parents, grandparents, grandchildren, they all came through her midwifery. So my grandfather was very involved. My grandmother died not very long after my mom, and they had a very similar, very tumultuous relationship. So the mother, I call it the mother wound,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
very much a generational curse in our family. So my grandmother, not so much. The memories I have, I don't wish to share them, but my grandfather was like the first man, the second man after my dad that I think really truly loved me.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome to find out that he tried for all of those years to kind of rescue me from the situation that I was in.
Right. Right. That's amazing. Um, I can relate to those scenarios in a couple of ways. My great grandmother, uh, both sides of my family, fathers and mothers, are from East Tennessee. So I understand that Southern culture. Um, the grandparents coming in, looking after the children's children,
Mhm.
that type of thing. My great grandmother was also a midwife.
No way.
Yep, birthed many children in her area as well in East Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that
Nothing happens by accident, right?
right, exactly, exactly. With that experience of having those joyful times in the summer and on vacations with your grandparents, what was it like for you going back to school in elementary, middle school?
Um, so I would say challenging, but also necessary, right? I loved that I found my solace in books and fashion. And I had a very good close family friend. Her name was Marie Fort, and she introduced me to high fashion magazines. And so when I came home, she always had a stack of magazines for me to peruse through so I could see all these models and I Magnum and all just, you know. So I remember that kind of helping the transition back into school, because I would read the articles, I would read about the designers, I wanted to know where they were located. So my love for reading was kind of my catharsis. I could escape to an Edgar Allan Poe poem to try to, explain what I was feeling viscerally.
Yeah,
I had a pretty much almost photographic memory, so I could read a book as long as you could give me, and I could pretty much remember most of it at that time.
yeah,
I'm in menopause now, so don't try that now. So it's Not gonna work. But back then, that was definitely kind of how I transitioned back from the summer, back to school, back into this kind of very toxic, traumatic home. But I made sure that no one knew, right? I was always the one to say, no, everything's great. Most of my childhood friends didn't know that my parents died by suicide until I was 45. They
Oh,
had no
wow.
idea. So I had wonderful friends that would allow me to, I had plenty of mothers and plenty of moms that would bring me in and under their wing and love on me, which had a very big influence on how I am today because I am now that mom.
Here.
I adopt children everywhere I go, every job I have, every college I speak. So yeah, so I used school. I was always in the talented and gifted classes,
Okay.
which I also got teased for oddly enough, right? They're like, "You're smart." And I'm like, "You're not." Who's teasing who?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was it. I would say books, reading, and my love for creativity is what helped transition from those super happy times that were my summers to, okay, buckle down. You're going to get straight A's, perfect attendance. I was the perfect student. But that was again to just kind of protect myself from myself.
Right, right. Did Once you got into middle school, high school, did you try to take as many of those creative classes as possible?
So towards the high school that I went to, the high school I chose to attend, it was called, I don't know if it's still around, but it was called Health Careers. So I wanted to be a nurse when I was little. And a lot of that was because my grandmother, again, she's a midwife. And
Yeah.
so I loved the care and nurturing that I saw her exhibit. So I said, I want to be a nurse. That's what I'm going to do. The high school that I went to is a magnet school, and so it's focused on health careers. So we didn't have a football team. We didn't have, some of the things the other high schools had because the concentration was in preparing you for a career in medicine,
Yeah.
right? However, by the time I was 16, I was already out of my mother's home. I had to leave and emancipate myself. So I was an adult in high school.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. A lot
Yeah,
of uh lot of responsibility put on your shoulders early,
yeah.
and taking that on as well. Um, were there with that focus on potentially becoming a nurse, um, how did that play out for you? Because I believe you said your first child was at 17.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
how did that play out for you?
it's so awesome. And I don't know if I tell the story enough, but I had my daughter at my senior year of high school, so I ended up having to I got a GED.
Okay.
And I just felt extremely disappointed in myself because I had this desire and this dream to go into nursing school, which I did. I just didn't finish. Because fast forward, by the time I'm in college and I'm away from my mother's house, I'm living with my daughter and my at the time husband, who was significantly older than I was. I I finished nursing school with the exception for that last year. Something about me in the last year just doesn't work out. But that's the year that my mother passed away. And so um, I kind of ditched the idea of nursing school, right? I'm like, I can't finish anything. I tried, life just keeps lifing. Of course, that's not what we said back then, but
Right.
um, interestingly enough, my daughter, Tiffany, when I gave birth to her, which was a miracle. Like everyone was like, we don't know how this even, I mean, not like a Jesus kind of miracle. Like, I
Right.
mean, we know how he got there. But it was interesting because when she was 6 or 7, she said she wanted to be a nurse. And I remember just my heart being so full of like, I can help you do that because not only my high school, was focused on medicine and medical support, but also I finished all but my last year when you have to do an internship. But I already had a husband and a child and a house and a job, and so there was no way to do that and that. And so when my daughter graduated from high school, she got a full ride academic scholarship to Southern. Um, University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana,
Nice.
and she got her bachelor's degree in nursing. And I remember us studying together, and I remember realizing that my desire for being a nurse was just to prepare me to help her become a nurse. And so she's gone on to receive a master's. She has her CCRNA. She is doing an amazing job in the space that she works in. So it's interesting when you do reflect, when you go back and go, why was that a thing? Like I was passionate about nursing, but it wasn't for me.
Right.
And I didn't tell my daughter that until she walked across the stage when she got her bachelor's degree. And I'm like, I thought that was going to be me, but I know now why I had such a passion for nursing.
Right. Right. That's fantastic. And what an amazing accomplishment for her as well. The the experiences that you had in terms of having to let that dream go of being the nurse, um, did you find yourself shifting back into any of that creativity draw that you had at that particular point in time?
It shifted a bit, right? So my first job, my first real job, as it were, was for a small company, AT&T.
Okay, yeah.
And I was able to utilize my love of creativity because I worked in training. So back then in the 1900s, when we used to use humans to train other humans, that was my passion. So I was able to integrate my love for creativity, my love for words, my love for reading into the work that I did at AT&T as a, instructional designer. So, a little less fashiony, right? But still very much creative because I had to make sure that my students were engaged. I had to make sure that the classes were interactive. So, that kind of started my pivot into corporate America. So AT&T, I stayed there for a long time. And pretty much every other job I had was either in training, coaching, delivery, until I moved into technology and project management, which was right in a long time when humans stopped training so much and we started using computer-based technology and computer-based training,
Yeah.
and then machine learning and gamification. And so I followed that path. It still allowed me to be creative because I had to make sure that the students wanted to A, take the course, B, they could retain the information, and C, they weren't just bored out of their skulls and not, interested in doing it. So
Right.
yes, but not in the way I would have imagined.
Okay, got you. And then two, how is your husband at that time in terms of his um support? Is he fully supporting what you're doing and accomplishing or
Wonderful question. And so no. So there was, I think when my daughter turned, and I'm still working through dates and years because it was packed away for so long.
yeah,
But at some point in my daughter's life, he went to prison.
okay.
And I chose not to tell my daughter that. I told her he was on this vacation. I didn't want her to feel or be teased. I thought I was protecting her. So, but he was very abusive. It was a very violent relationship. And so that gave me the opportunity to move away from that place where we lived together. And then I moved to Tech. I moved a lot, but I ended up in Texas, and this is where we put our roots down. So he was not involved at all. I raised her 100% by myself.
Okay.
And we pretty much grew up together because I was a child at the time as well. So yeah,
Okay.
he was not involved. He was not around to be involved. And by the time he was released from prison, and he went back a couple times, but we had already started our life here and she was thriving. And we didn't see him again until she graduated from high school. So
Okay.
that's
Okay.
me.
Got you. So one of the things that I do with an interview is I'm tracking things that affect a person's life from early on, and how those things potentially repeat or cycle through, and then affect us as we're older as well. Um, and I'm seeing that you're having many situations that are mentally taxing on you as an individual. And I want to point out early on in this conversation your resilience. that has shown itself so far in this storyline. Um, because you're a very strong woman.
Thank you. I don't feel that way most of the time, so thanks. I appreciate that.
I hope you can hope you can let that wash over you. And that that's a testament to what you're currently doing as well, and the advocate that you are now. Is that resilience and people being able to see that and you being able to pour that into other people. Um, that's an amazing thing. Once once your daughter graduated um, from college, got that degree, and you both had that excitement at that point in time. Um, are you still working at AT&T at that point as well, or had you shifted
No,
to
I
another?
was, yeah, I was working for, if I'm not mistaken, I was working for 7-Eleven Corporate, which is based here in Dallas, was based here in Dallas, Texas at the time. So still working in the same type of space, but not for the same organization. Um, and also, let's not miss that at my daughter's high school graduation, I was 7 months pregnant. So, um, I was a little busy, a little busy working, a little busy with the surprise that was and is my son Miles, right? Um, so if I don't remember exactly where I was working, it's because I was, um, tending to a whole other human.
Yeah,
At that time. So yeah, I never really went very far away from that space, that training, that development, mentoring. Even when I went into technology, I would always have people in my office. I had people that I mentored in corporate America, and that wasn't a good thing. That wasn't popular, right? You had a set of KPIs. You're supposed to do these 5 things. Those 5 things does not include mentoring the people in the other departments, folks, right? And so at that point, I realized that, being a servant leader is something that is just kind of who you are, and you have to know how and when to allow that to show up. And so it still did, even at 7-Eleven Corporate and every company that I moved to since then as well.
yeah. Did did Miles's father stay in the picture?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That,
Even though we're divorced, we are co-parents. So we show up to every event together. My son will be graduating in May of 2026.
okay,
So, obviously we don't live together, but Miles has 2 amazing homes and 2 amazing parents that from the outside, no one knows that we're divorced unless you know us.
right,
Um,
right.
so yeah, he's very, very supportive of Miles and even of my endeavors in this space. So yes, he has been.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That's a shift in the pattern, kind of a breaking of chains, so to speak. Uh,
Absolutely.
uh, and I'm glad to hear that. Glad that he has that support and love from the both of you, regardless of the paper situation
Right.
that entails, right?
Yeah.
Did he have any creative
Gosh.
expression?
My son is the most creative kid I've ever met. And it's so pure. I remember maybe he was 5 or 6. I bought him this. There was a cartoon called Cars that he loved, and then there was a sequel to it called Planes, right? And it
Yeah,
was this
yeah, yeah.
cartoon, right? And he loved this movie. And one day I'm in some store, and there's like this little plastic acoustic guitar, and it was like the characters from Planes. So I bought it for him. It had like three little strings, and it was just made, it was like, $7 worth of a guitar. He loved it. As soon as he picked it up, he's just like plucking songs on it, and he's singing. I have video of this stuff, which just brings me joy to this day. He's singing songs to his sister because she's away at college, right? And so when she comes home for college, then he would have these songs for her. He during middle school, I guess elementary, middle school, at the beginning of high school, he was in marching band. Oh,
Who we are, explain what that is, and how all this fits in as we continue.
okay.
And this is a Yeah, so we were talking about Miles's love for the planes, and you got him the guitar, and he was strumming, and
He loves music. He could read music instantly. Like I never, he just could pick up music and could read it. And I didn't understand how that even had that happened. Very great in marching band. He played the euphonium, which he came home with it, and I'm like, this is a what? What is it? I had no idea what that even meant. And he did very great in it. Freshman year, it kind of got burned out, right? Marching band, especially in Texas, is
oh yeah,
serious.
yeah,
So it's like 5 a.m. practices before school and then games afterwards, and they're coming home at 11. So he chose to get away from that. And then he picked up a passion for photography.
okay,
And so he is a phenomenal photographer. He loves to cook. Like he's all of the things that they say young men shouldn't be.
right.
He's like, no, I love to cook, and he can make anything from anything. And now he has a bass guitar that he spends most of his time in his room,
Yeah,
plugged in
right.
and creating music. So yeah, his love for music is outstanding.
It's fantastic, fantastic. Does he have any aspirations of pursuing any one of those avenues professionally?
Yes. So it's funny because he's tall. Well, I'm 5'2", so everybody's tall to me. But my son's almost 6 foot. And so whenever people ask him, like, they're like, are you going to play college? Are you going to play college football? Are you going to play college basketball? And he's like, I'm going to play chess. And I am going to learn how to put my creative skills to use. So he is, I don't know if there's a word that's like unapologetically creative, right?
Yeah,
Even though he's brilliant and he's taking all of these advanced placement courses and honors courses,
yeah,
he has a love of music and of art. And so his dream is to go to the Art School of London. And I don't know how I'm going to make it work, but I am. It will. And so I promised him a gap year. He wants to go travel the world and meet other creatives his age.
okay,
And he believes that and I believe that he will find his tribe, right?
yeah,
That he's going to find his tribe that are also brilliant, but they just appreciate music and photography and art and dance,
right.
and expressing themselves through that medium.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Another thing that I'm seeing here too is early on, your love for books created a refuge for you.
Yes.
Um, and you had a mind, as you said, that retained that information and retained it vividly.
Yes.
Your daughter goes into medical school, which you have to have a mind that can retain much and many pieces of information.
Yes.
She graduated, accomplished that, is pursuing that. Your son has got some of your creative side, but as well as the mental side. If he thinks he's wanting to focus on chess, that's very mental,
Yes.
very mental.
Mhm.
Um, Music, notes, different things of that nature. You're having to use mental elements of the brain. Um, so I'm finding it interesting that they're having those experiences and working in those directions
Yeah.
based off of your storyline.
I know, it's amazing.
Um,
I don't know if I've ever put it all together. I'm too busy. I was too busy being a mom. I'm like, I never connected the dots, probably.
that's all right. That's what my job is with
I
this
appreciate you.
podcast
I
is
appreciate you.
to put pins in certain places and then draw the strings
Yeah.
across the timeline. Um, Shifting into pre-pandemic America, what does your life look like at that point in time in terms of
Um,
work, what you're doing, all that kind of stuff?
So pre-pandemic, I'm still in corporate. I have risen to a level of leadership where I have a significant number of direct reports and also interns and also mentees. I constantly give back. I sit on the board for PMI at this time. I'm sitting on different boards. Um, and I'm a speaker. So I've been doing keynote speaking since, again, the 1900s. My press team is like, stop saying that. You're dating yourself. Just say you did it over 20 years. I'm like, well, it was over 30. Like, don't say that. Then just say over 20.
Right.
But I'm on stages. I'm very comfortable being on stage and I'm having conversations that people don't want to talk about, like um, pre-pandemic, like burnout, right? I talked a
Yeah.
lot about work burnout and what it looked like. I want to say maybe 2013 or between 2009 and 2013, the World Health Organization did a study about what burnout looked like in, corporate America. And so I took that and embedded that into a lot of my keynotes that were maybe the keynote was about project management or it was about leadership, but I always found a way to talk about this burnout aspect and how to avoid it.
Yeah.
So pre-pandemic had me on the stages, had me traveling. I had a team. I had a 9 to 5. I had, my son is in school. I'm still married at the time. 2016, I got divorced,
Okay.
or my ex-husband filed for divorce. And that was a moment of just kind of reevaluating kind of who I was and what
Yeah.
my role was on this planet because I'd been a mother for so long
Right.
and so living on my own or separate was, I feel like the first time I ever really lived on my own was when I got divorced, right?
Okay.
The first memories of spending a night alone without one of my children with me. And that is what sparked my energy to get back involved in the creative space because now I had time to do that. Like I could actually write my first book. I could actually, read more books and consume more things that I wanted to learn more about. So pre-pandemic really helped me find out who Sherry James was.
Okay.
It was not Sherry James, the mom, and not Mrs. James, but
Yeah.
like who I was. Like I still loved to read. I still loved poetry. I go to concerts alone. I go see movies and plays alone. And so that really kicked it back up for me. And one thing I do want to mention, because I can't leave this out. When I first moved to Texas, I started a company. When I left AT&T, I started my own company, and it was an artist management company. It was called Sankofa Entertainment Management.
Okay.
And Sankofa, um, in an African parable, there's a bird. I have a thing for birds, obviously, because of Phoenix.
Right.
But the Sankofa principle says we must return to the past in order to move forward. And the story about the Sankofa bird is that before she would go anywhere, she would have to preen her tail feathers. Like she would never fly forward without fixing her tail feathers. And this proverb meant that we had to go back to what worked for us before. What was it that worked for us before? If we're going to prepare for the future, we should know where we came from. And
Yeah.
so that company actually I had models and musicians and writers that I taught them not just how to use their gift, but how to make sure that they understood the business behind it. So this
Yeah.
was pre-streaming.
Yep. Yep.
People were still selling cassettes and CDs
Yep.
of music at the time.
Yep.
And so I don't want to miss that. That's a very important part of the timeline because I still kept in contact with those people. I would show up to events if they had them. I would show up to support them throughout those years. So after I got divorced and now I have time as a single person to go do these things, I slowly started becoming more intertwined back into that community because I had left it alone once my son was born, right? I couldn't, it was just too much.
Right, right. Let's, yeah, let's put a pin in the shifting back into that, but let's go back to the artist management because that definitely speaks to the demographic that this podcast is going out to. And I'm a bit familiar with all of those elements with the industries that I worked in. Once you took on those artist models, different things like that, and you're having to educate them about the business and the way it's functioning pre streaming, pre um, Apple Music, pre Spotify, pre SoundCloud, all that kind of stuff. What is the main thing that you saw that they didn't understand?
Um, I I would say that most of them just believed that they were going to like they're going to make it, and I
Yeah,
and I love that. Like I love that they had that hope. um they did not understand that there's a difference between having a gift, being able to sing or play a bit guitar, and then what it takes to become what they saw on back that MTV or TV or whatever.
yeah,
There's a lot of work that takes place in the middle, and so that was never being shown. No one knew that. Artists were like, well, if I'm good at it, I'm just going to get a contract with a record label. And I'm like, well,
yeah,
you're not the only one doing this thing. And
right.
there's a significant amount of competition. And the challenge for me was explaining that when the internet wasn't as, you know, utilized
Accessible.
as it is
Yeah,
now. Right?
yeah,
So they're like, no, I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna be this thing. And so trying to temper the hope while also teaching them the business was very challenging because people were like, I just want to go sing. I don't care if nobody pays me. I don't, yes, I signed this contract in perpetuity. And I was like, what? Why? So, it became very difficult. So, and when the music industry changed and started, doing less selling CDs out of your trunk,
right.
um, and it was very difficult to keep up because holding the artist accountable for understanding the business of music or the business of entertainment
Yeah,
was more than I could handle, and also still working and still traveling and speaking and raising a family. So
yeah,
that was probably the most challenging part is making them understand that their gift did not equal their business acumen.
right, right. And believe me, I've seen that over and over and over and over uh, in the Metro Detroit area. You know the music history in Metro Detroit. You know that it's had many successes that have come out of here, but there's also many of those who thought they were going to make it and didn't, and a lot of that had to do with the business side of things, uh,
Absolutely.
and or the ego side of things.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Right.
A lot of
Yeah.
that.
It, it's just an amazing thing for me to see people with talent who aren't always interested in working um, to propel that talent.
Yeah.
Um, so I can relate to that as well. What was one of the joyful things about doing that type of work and having that company with all those creatives?
Um, so I think in that time I was very frustrated, right? When I decided to just kind of let it go. But I do have like a success story. There
Okay.
was a gentleman who wanted to be a Christian rapper. And met younger gentleman, married, wonderful human being. And he's like, I'm very talented and I should be able to get signed on into a label very easily. And I shopped him. And so I shopped him to a particular record label. And I remember I just knew he was going to get signed because he had a very it was something different than what everyone else was doing. And he got turned down, and there was yeah, so I had to come back and tell him that he didn't get the deal. This particular label was not at all interested, and some pretty nasty words were used as to why they did not want his music. Now,
Yeah.
fast forward to this year, or just to tell you, kind of, I'll skip all the good part, but effective right now, that same gentleman is he has a YouTube channel, a YouTube network, um, of I don't know how many millions of followers or listeners. And he's still delivering his message, not necessarily with rap, but comedy, and a talk show that he has with some amazing people that are in the industry.
Fantastic.
And so, in hindsight, we had to go to the past
Yeah.
and go, remember that disappointment? Remember how hard it was for me to tell you that so here's your hint. Because there was no room for a good boy on this particular label, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if he had been signed to that label all those years ago, he would have the smear on his name because of that label and the drama that they're going through right now.
Ah, got you. All right. Yes.
Yeah, so that's my biggest success story. It is knowing that I have this word. My word is pronoia, knowing that everything is working out in your favor. Like the universe is conspiring for your success,
Right.
and that's one of the biggest examples of that. Like he understands the business. When he did get his first show, he knew what to ask. He knew what not to sign.
Yeah.
And so he and his wife and sons have built this amazing empire, where he can still deliver this message of how to live your life as a Christian, and not the way that like our great grandparents taught us, but like real life. Like he's like, one of his episodes, he says like, husbands, stop asking your wives to tell you the truth about what she feels about the way you look. If she's honest with you, it's gonna break your heart. Right? He's like, she's going to lie to you. So allow it. Trust me, you don't want to know
Right.
what she really thinks about you. And so he's able to use that levity and that comedy to still get the message across to Christians and non-Christians alike,
Yeah,
which is so much bigger than he could have dreamed 20 some odd years ago.
for
So
sure.
yeah, that's probably my favorite story, to share about bringing the past forward.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. All right, so let's circle back to Sherry reclaiming her creativity, re-tapping into that.
So I would say, and I don't know if I would have put these two together before this call, but when I moved to Texas, especially, well, I've always liked to dress nice. Again, so I had this influence from my godmother, and so all the time I was in corporate America, from AT&T on till my last corporate gig, I always dressed for the position that I wanted, never the one that I had. So I was always the best dressed. I'm always in a suit. I was always in heels when I could wear heels. I used to have dreadlocks, like very
Yeah,
long locks,
yeah,
that I would keep pulled up in a bun during the day, and then, at night I could just be me, right? I've always been over accessorized. I've always loved jewelry. So there was always that creative part of me. And they were like, she's dressed in a Brooks Brothers suit, but she has on like a leather cuff bracelet. Like, how do we make these two things make sense, right? So it was interesting that as the longer I was in corporate America, the more comfortable I was in owning my style, right? I would wear things together. Like my favorite combination is like a very sarcastic t-shirt with a suit, the blazer and slacks and
yeah,
pumps, right? And so people will be just like, oh, well, we can't wait to see what her t-shirt's going to say today, because it was always some kind of twisted,
yeah,
not everybody got it.
right.
And so I have this collection of t-shirts that some people still don't understand. But I enjoy the arts. I was a member of, a charter member of the Perot Museum that's built here in Dallas. I was able to watch, listen to this, I worked for 7-Eleven corporate, and we relocated. When I first worked there, it was like brass and glass and marble. It was just very decadent. And then 7-Eleven was purchased by a Japanese organization who came in and said, why are you spending all this money on office space? We're going to put you in cubes in downtown Dallas, and you don't need receptionists and parking spaces. We had a floor that like you could just go drink every day. Like it
Right.
was So, as it turns out, where that 7-Eleven office was built was right in the heart of what's now called the Dallas Arts District. And there's the Winspear Opera House. I watched them all get built from nothing into these beautiful structures. So for all of them that I could, I became charter members. I attended as many events as I could. So I slowly kind of got back into the art scene because it was new in Dallas. We didn't have that big of a presence.
Right,
So I was then at all the things, at everything that I could go to, I did.
right.
That's still the case today. So now I live in a city about an hour north, and Frisco, Texas is doing the same thing that Dallas, Texas did when I was there. So now we're trying to bring Broadway, make this a Broadway stop. We've got all kinds of theaters and museums. So it feels like everywhere I go, either I'm bringing the art or I'm following the art. I'm not sure which one is which, but
Right.
I still that brings me the most joy. Anything artistic, creative. I've got a team of interns that I kind of make sure that they meet the people that they're supposed to meet, even though they don't know let put
Yeah,
them together, you
yeah.
know?
You're
Um,
linking things up.
yeah, but I don't do it for influence or I don't do it for income. It's just the right thing to do. You've always got to have a champion in your corner.
Yeah,
And I really like being that silent partner and that person that's watching what blossoms. If I can just plant a seed and then water it and then come back and it's blossoming with all this fruit. That's the season that I'm in right now, so it's amazing.
that's fantastic. Once the pandemic hits, what does that do to your world in terms of how you're maneuvering, how you're operating, how you're functioning as a,
Um, it's so funny. I don't know that I give the pandemic the credit that most people do, right?
okay?
So, in January of 2019, I had a stroke,
Oh, wow.
and what was my third? And so, while I was in the rehab facility, they were like, "You'll never walk again. You'll probably not regain the function of the left side of your body. The stroke was on the right side of my brain." And I refused to believe it. I'm like, I have red bottoms that I need to wear. I will walk again. I was like, this is not even a question. So, 2019 is when I decided to start building up my own brand, even though I was still in corporate America. Pre-pandemic for me was very hopeful. I was like, I'm starting this business. I'm writing this book. I wrote a book to my dad to have a conversation with him so that I could kind of close that chapter in my life
Yeah,
of that healing. And so 2019 for me was, even though and obviously I'm walking, I got out of my rehab facility. I was able to walk and still wear my shoes and dress up and do all the things that I wanted. But I became very focused on the mental health conversations that I saw both in the creative spaces that I was a part of and in corporate America. So January of 2020, I had already started 2020 Lives Changed as the nonprofit.
yeah,
As far as Phoenix Speaks is concerned, I had a litany of speaking and paid speaking engagements booked for 2020. So I'm excited. Like I'm just like, this is my year to like break free of this corporate thing and just go full force into speaking full time.
yeah,
And because of my resilience, I suppose even though my position in corporate was eliminated in April of 2020, and I had agreed to, for every paid speaking event that I had, I was going to then do that same speech at a school for free or a public professional development place, a veterans establishment. So, what 2020 was for me was that I still got the opportunity to do that philanthropic work. Financially, it was very challenging, obviously,
sure.
because I had lost my job, but we were covered and we were blessed enough to still be able to launch Phoenix Speaks and launch 2020 Lives Changed and massage it and work with it and make it make sense at a time when so many people just needed someone to talk to.
Right.
So 2020 for me was amazing because I started 3 Instagram IG lives, which I had no idea what I was doing, because I wasn't a social media person. I don't watch TV. Like so but my son and I started an Instagram channel and it was called with or a show and it was called With Your Mind in Mind. And we would just have conversations like, how is this pandemic impacting you? What would do you wish that you could say that you can't, right? Right. Ask me questions about things that you've always wondered. And, we talked about the racial issues around the George Floyd. I just made myself in this kind of open kimono. Like, just ask me anything you ever would want to ask a person, an African American person, right? And that caused so much healing and so much like more conversation that we ended up with another show called Shelter in Peace. So we would give people tools to implement, my son and I, while they were sheltering in place. Like, here's some things you can do to encourage a healthy familial structure because so many families didn't spend time with their families before 2020,
Right.
right? And they're
Right.
like, how long have I been married to you? I don't even like you.
Exactly.
But the same thing applied. And one of the things that I want to stress why we were so focused on the 2020 lives changed aspect is because I was a victim of sexual child abuse in my own home. And in the cases where that is happening, the pandemic put the victims at home with the all day, every day,
Yep.
right? And so I wanted to try to give them a platform and a voice because sometimes school was the only safe place for them. I know what that was like. I remember I was at school early every day and I would stay as long as I could.
Right.
And so I knew that. I knew what that felt like. So 2020 for me, it allowed me to actually use my voice, not just as a speaker because I worked for all these big companies, but as a human who had experienced trauma. And I knew that a lot of triggers were being thrown at people because they were kind of sheltering in place and not able to do what they needed to do. So 2020 for me was a pivotal year in knowing that this is my purpose. This is what I will do for the rest of my life. And what we're building is so much bigger than me because I was willing to listen to that voice inside to say you've got a story to share and someone needs to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Your books, are they still available at all?
So one of them is so the Ripple Effect of Impact is actually an anthology, and you can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then the next book will be out by October of this year, and it's called 20 Seconds. I'm sorry, it's called 7 Seconds of Silence, and it's how to utilize 7 seconds of silence to de-escalate or a potential emotional trigger. And so I have the most fun doing that keynote because if you imagine 5,000 people in an audience and you just make them not say anything for 7 seconds, they're like, that's a long time.
Right.
But yeah, so that's the book.
Okay.
The anthology was amazing. The chapter that I wrote really helped me continue my journey into healing. And so now we're on the positive side. Now I'm teaching people to create mental wealth. And this summer, we're doing a book based on the Red Book by Carl Jung. Do you know this book?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're decoding that book. We're using AI to create 7 new personas based on actual human beings and how they interact with the Red Book. So we got those 2 books in the works. So I'm excited.
Fantastic. Fantastic. With the concept of mental wealth, for the audience that may not quite understand what that is, can you expand on that just a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's so when I was growing up, I don't know about when you were growing up. Surely you're much younger than I, but we would have these check registers and we would have to write down when we got paid. We wrote down what the deposit was and how much that was. And then whenever a bill came in, you had to write down the bill and then you'd subtract that from that amount. We no one teaches children that anymore. No one's teaching that. So what I'm finding when I go into colleges and universities are the 2 things that are the most needed and the least talked about are finances and mental health,
Yes.
right? And so I decided because I have this history of training and developing training to develop this training that says every morning when you wake up, I want you to assign a value to that day,
Yeah.
right? So if I woke up this morning, I would say I woke up this morning feeling like $1 million, but that's not true because we had a whole bunch of stuff happen yesterday, right?
Yeah.
But I can choose to see something as a withdrawal or a deposit. Both things are true simultaneously.
Yep.
So, for example, I'm driving in traffic. I'm on the highway, I'm doing the speed limit, and someone cuts me off. in traffic. I want to like, what are you doing? What are you? I just, that could very well be a mental wealth withdrawal for me. Or I could choose to say, well, they didn't hit me and I didn't hit them and I'm safe and they're safe and I'm still on my way. I'm going to count that as a deposit. I'm going to write that in as a plus 5,000.
Yeah.
And that's really the concept. Of course, we expound on it when people take the course or when they hire me to be their trusted advisor to teach them their specific mental wealth bank account
Yeah.
and transactions. But that's the gist of it is you have control of making something a deposit or a withdrawal. And your mental wealth is the only wealth that is truly important because financially you could have a bunch of zeros in the bank and be very, very challenged with your mental wealth. So
Yeah.
this concept brings both together.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a reframing as well of the
Absolutely.
way you're assessing something and looking at it.
Mhm.
Um, Spinning it to the positive versus the negative in terms of the way the numbers are adding. Um, I know many times that within a life, things are hitting you, and then it feels like that bank account, that mental bank account is being drained, and then enters the negative, and then you get taxed on top of that
That's right. Yes.
with the overdraft fee.
Yeah, that's so good. That's true.
Um,
Except we have the opportunity to see the opposite. You and it's so funny because when I do keynotes, I make everyone write down 5 things that bring them joy,
yeah,
right? But we have to start with the positive because the natural is just sadly where we go. We just automatically go. And I have to usually fight with people like, no, no, no. What brings you joy?
yeah,
And then I make them assess a value to that. Okay, I have an emotional service animal. I have a cat. Love her to death. She is a good 10 grand every day, just every morning, right?
nice.
And my children and my music. And so when you start that process every day, and especially when you write it down. A lot of my younger students don't like that. They don't want to write anything. They want to
Yeah,
type it. I'm like, no, you need to write it so your brain remembers this is a $10,000 deposit. My family is a $100,000 deposit. My family can also be a $100,000 withdrawal. It really depends on
yeah,
the day.
for
Right?
sure.
But if I'm keeping track of it and I'm writing it down, then this is almost a neuro-linguistic programming technique to say, I'm going to start my day off with my deposits. I know the world is going to have some withdrawals. I know it. That's just what life is. But I'm prepared for it because I'm bringing my positive balance from the day before. I'm giving it the value that it deserves for today. Because if I woke up I'm starting at $1 million, right? And then those other things over time, though they are withdrawals, like the news or traffic or a commute, you know that's coming. And so you just started with like, it's going to be a great drive to work today. The
Yeah,
drive to work today is going to be a positive in my mental wealth bank account by 700,000. And so every time somebody does something and I'm still up 500,000. It's
right,
fine. So it's
right.
literally a reprogramming. It's a paradigm shift of let me talk about deposits and withdrawals. And you even identify people in their phone. One of the activities is like if someone calls you and you look at your phone and you're like, oh shit, do I want to take this call? Then you need to put in their contact withdrawal. Like
Yeah,
you need to and put the amount, $1 million withdrawal so much easier to decline that call. You're like, yeah, I'm not in a place where I can afford $1 million mental wealth withdrawal.
yeah.
So yeah, so we get just kind of practical, actual tips to manage day to day.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because if you're identifying that immediately on your phone and you're in a headspace of you got too many things going on and you see that come up and that's a withdrawal, you might want to put that off for a few days.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, you will find what I found is that those calls that are always mental wealth withdrawals, when you stop answering, they stop coming. People stop calling.
Yeah,
They're like, hey, that worked out. Now I've got some extra time that I can work on my deposits. It worked out
right.
perfect.
Exactly. Exactly. It's an amazing concept. the way that you're presented it, even. And I say that from the aspect of you describing it, you actually make them write it down. And one of the things that we know as creatives and someone who's dealt with mental health issues over the years, depression, anxiety, a suicide attempt, you learn that the physical action of moving your hand with a pencil, a pen, a paintbrush,
Mm,
whatever, it's a physiological thing that takes place versus typing,
agreed.
right? It's a completely different scenario. You can get a person to shift their mindset with just a few seconds to a minute, minute and a half of them just running a pen in a circle on a piece of paper. And I don't think many people today, 2025, realize that concept enough
Yeah, agreed.
and are able to implement that into um, into a practice. And again, I'm saying this because of the advancements of technology, as great as they are in helping us do the things that we're doing now. There's still something to be said about the traditional forms of creativity
Agreed.
because there's certain energy, an energy flow
Mhm.
that takes place when you're creating and you're creating in a traditional form that doesn't always come out if you're working digitally.
Agreed. Agreed.
And that's a thing that I try to always reaffirm with any creatives that I'm talking to or having on the podcast or just seeing out in general in the community itself is that as much as they love drawing on the iPad and creating these fantastic pieces, it doesn't always have the same energy that an original piece of art on a wall in someone's home. It can speak to them very differently
Absolutely.
than that digital piece.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where the magic takes place
Agreed.
in in the creative world. Um, and I believe it comes directly from the creator because as we know, everything that was coming from the creator was spoken into existence. So that's why spoken word can be so very powerful. That's why poetry can be so very powerful. That's why a musician can write a song that's so powerful because of those words that are coming out. And it's kind of a clever cliche saying that words are magic, and that's why they call it spelling, is because you're casting a spell every time you say something, right?
That's valid. There, yeah, there's truth to that. That's good.
It's spelling.
Mm-hmm.
But again, these are fantastic perspectives that you're bringing to the attention
Thank you.
of your audiences and our audience today, um, and creatives in general. Because again, like I said, it's that reframing of the way you're looking at things. And again, I want to highlight your resilience, your ability to be able to shift your own way of perspective of looking at things to help others and pass that on. And that being the legacy that you're creating. Not only have you overcome so many traumatic experiences in your life, you've also dealt with physical things that have put you down for periods of time, right? And you've come back from those as well. I don't know how much those still affect you, but yet you are standing.
I am.
I'm perceiving today.
I'm standing.
Okay. Yeah. So that's amazing to me. I hope anybody listening to this, just because I needed to say that just for the listeners that aren't able to watch this, but those that are going to be able to watch this, I hope that they can see um, the things that I'm seeing. And it's a huge amount of resilience. It's a huge amount of taking what would put many down and keep them down. You've, like that phoenix behind you, have risen again and again and again. Um, and that's very powerful. That's very powerful. Is there is there something that is taking place in the work that you're doing right now that you believe is going to be a game changer in the next 5 years?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In the next 5 months, actually. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm super excited. Now you know the story. You know I'm a nerd. You know I love to read. I have a passion for psychology, but there's a guy, Carl Jung, who's like one of the forefathers of psychology.
Oh,
I don't even know how I stumbled upon the Red Book, right?
okay.
It was
Yeah.
actually because I was listening to one of his other books. And the Red Book, ironically, was also handwritten. It was one of the last books that he wrote. He wrote it in an actual red book because he didn't want this was like, he said, if anyone sees this, they're going to deem me crazy. They're going to say that I'm crazy. So he actually writes in this red book about his coming into self, understanding self. He meets, people say that this is the book where Jung met God.
Yeah.
It's where he had conversations with Jesus. It's just, and no one knows about this book. Like most people are like, what? The Red Book? I have
Yeah.
nothing. So right now, effective tomorrow. So we're having a big info session tomorrow, but we're using our summer intern program to teach the Red Book to Gen Z and Alpha students who would likely never, it may not even be able to be found by
Right.
the time it's relevant for them, right? And so they're not only going to read this book and get to know this book, but they're going to create 7 personas based on their own human experiences. We're going to revise and rewrite the Red Book based on current day personas. And we're doing it using AI, which I just love. So it brings all the things together. It brings, and the name of the project is I Am AI. I also love a palindrome, right?
Nah.
So, um, we get to program, and I've done this. So I've built 3 chat agents, AI chat agents that are focused just on the Red Book by Carl Jung. And I'm going to give the students the opportunity to interact with it. And one of the things I'm the most excited about is it shouldn't be that. I shouldn't be that excited about it. But I found in my story, I was like, I found is that if you don't ask AI or certain AI platforms, if you don't ask it, is this the truth?
Right.
It will tell you what you want to hear, and it may very well not be the truth.
Yeah.
So this is like kind of the underlying, like yes, use the tools that have been provided to you, but trust and verify, right?
Yeah.
Trust and verify.
Yes.
Because even if you ask AI, it'll say, no, I made that up. I just thought that's what you wanted to hear me say.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be able to teach Jung's perspectives that he learned or he taught about in the Red Book to a generation who would never see it, utilizing a platform that they're already very familiar with, that is still in their mind, it's in its infancy. AI has been around for 70 plus years,
Yeah.
but because they believe they invented it and they believe that it is the end all be all to truth. I want them to understand who they are, find out who their shadow selves are, understand what that looks like, know that that's not a bad thing, but also understand that, like, wait a minute, ask AI what it knows about you. And
Right.
is it accurate? And if it's not, how did it get that information? And so I'm so excited. Like we kick off tomorrow for the info session, but on the 25th officially, I probably have more applications in my LinkedIn inbox than I can manage. So at this point, I'm like, if you want to do it, come on. We're not interviewing anymore. If you attend the info session and you want to be a part of this work, It will be published via academia, via a white paper and a case study,
Yeah.
and ultimately a book. So that's the thing that brings creating mental wealth into this next season of life, right? How do I create mental wealth using AI and also the thoughts and the realizations that Carl Jung had, but before he passed. So I'm super
Right.
excited about it. Can you tell? I get all like,
Yeah, no, exactly. That was amazing. Um, I know exactly what you're talking about because I had an experience this morning even working with AI. I asked it a question, came back, spit out a bunch of answers, and gave me actual links to what it was referencing. And I said, okay, that's great, but that's not what I asked you.
right?
And it said, okay, thank you for reminding me. And it went back and then it spit out the exact same information again.
Again.
I said, wait a second, why are you not reading my prompt and working from my prompt? It said, oh, thank you for being patient and spit out the same information again. And then finally, I was like, we're going to stop here because you're not reading my prompt at all. And if you don't give me the answer to this question, then I'm just going to be done today.
But can I give you like a little tip?
Sure,
Just
go ahead. Because what I was about to say though was that it finally recognized that it had been giving me the wrong information
Mhm.
and gave me the answer that I needed. Even though it
Right,
wasn't what I was looking for, it gave me the right answer.
right,
But
right, which
yeah,
is also not cool.
yeah,
What I'm finding in the programming of the AI for this project, um, is if you imagine it, which this terrifies the life out of some people, if you imagine it as an actual sentient being, right?
yes, yes,
And saying, okay, that's not true. Or is that true? And then why did you tell me that? And it'll tell you why it said that. Like, like I know that you work in mental health and I didn't want to tell you something and I have to keep prompting it to say, I'm going to ask you a question and I am trusting you, and there are words that are
yeah, yeah,
like it's looking for words to become more human, right?
right, right,
So how can I trust you if you continue to give me information that is not correct? And I know because I've worked in technology for long enough to know that there's no way that you could have found that information that quickly, right? Even with the speed of quantum computing, there's no way. So
yeah,
next time when I ask you a question, take your time to find the right answer. And if you don't understand the question, ask me to clarify. So this is what I'm going to be teaching the students in this class is to how to tweak your prompts to make sure that you're asking a question because it depends on where you live. It depends on the language that you speak. It depends on the language that was spoken by the developer of that particular platform. There are so many variables that you could get any kind of answer. And the next two generations believe everything is the truth that they
right,
find
right.
in AI. And
Yeah,
so we've got to make sure that they're validating that. And sometimes it's as simple as tweaking the way that we say things to make sure that it's written in a code language, in the language that the code understands.
right, for sure, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely the case. And you mentioned this earlier about conversation. And I think that's where some of the pandemic and just general society in and of itself has gotten away from conversation,
Great.
where conversation is the thing that allows us to get clarity. It allows us to get wisdom, information that we may believe is wrong. Um, but the conversation opens up the possibility of what actually is versus what you thought was a certain way, or what you were told was a certain way. And then you find out in the conversation that, oh, wait a second, somebody's been telling me the wrong thing the whole time.
Mhm.
Somebody that I'm talking to isn't the person that I thought they were because somebody else told me something.
Mhm.
And I think that's a fantastic thing and something that you've been doing for quite a few years and having these conversations and speaking and now stepping into this new field that is going to change. drastically the way people perceive things over the next 5 months.
Yes, absolutely. I was a project manager, so we've got to put short timelines so we can keep it moving.
Right.
I want to tell you one other thing that I'm doing as well is I'm teaching creatives to communicate. So I was at an event with our friends Dwight and Maddox,
Yes.
and there are a great deal of designers and fashion and models, and everyone, each one of them came up to the mic and they're like, I don't really like talking on the microphone, but and I'm like, you know what? This is a great tie back. So I am now offering courses for creatives to show them how to communicate with other humans.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Fantastic.
Because I've got the skills, I've got the background, I've taught others to communicate effectively. And so in October, like I mentioned, we're doing some big things, but one is that we're launching the Phoenix Speakers Academy, where we will teach humans to communicate with other humans. And it doesn't matter what field you're in, if you're a creative or not. Right now, I'm focusing just on creatives, but to build out the platform, because the corporate side, I've got that down pat. I can
Yeah.
do that with
Right.
my eyes closed.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's something that I'm super excited that we're offering right now, effective immediately. I'm bringing on trusted advisor clients so that I can teach them how to effectively communicate, not just with AI, but also with the people that are in these creative spaces who sometimes would rather do anything than have a conversation with another human.
For sure. That's fantastic. I think it's needed, absolutely needed. And also too, I think that it would be a great place for us to end today. And as we end, I always want to remind the audience to listen to your heart, but be kind to your mind.